A mysterious Bible text threatens to expose some dangerous truths that could change things forever. Secrets about cosmic meteors and their impact on our daily life have slowly become center focus as their importance skyrocket in our modern era. Ancient legends and monoliths point to a part of neglected human history that suggests giants once walked among us. Otherworldly visitors stalk every part of our journey on Earth, and stories of alien abductions can be found in cultures across the world. And now gods are believed to have walked among us in ancient times. With so many witnesses and pieces of evidence to these strange phenomena being real, why have they been disregarded as myths in modern times? What will these theories and discoveries mean for the future of mankind? Back in the year 1604, in the city of London, England, King James I ordered the creation of a standardized English Bible to end a dispute happening within the Anglican Church. Now, 4 centuries after its birth, the King James Version of the Bible remains the most famous in history, reaching the status of one of the most published books of all time. While this version of the Bible contains 66 books, the Catholic version of the Bible contains 73 books. The Ethiopian version of the Bible has even more, with 81 books. The big mystery surrounds the exclusion of these texts, especially the Book of Enoch. Why did King James exclude these texts from his standard Bible? According to Rabbi Ariel Bartzadok, the founder of the Kosher Torah school, he explains that there has always been accepted literature which later becomes orthodoxy, and then there is other literature that the already established Orthodox reject. Amir Hussein, a professor of theological studies at Loyola Marymount University, describes how books that do not make it into the final cut of the Bible, including the Hebrew and New Testaments Bibles, are known as the Apocrypha. The word Apocrypha actually means hidden thing, reveals Professor Julia Bidmead from Chapman University. The ancients hid texts that they believed could be harmful to the general public or because they presented some kind of danger to the status quo. Now the question arises, was the Book of Enoch omitted from the King James Bible because it contained information about human history that was considered too dangerous for the public to learn? Ancient theorists suggest that more context for his decision can be found by examining different passages in the Old Testament. Rabbi Ariel recounts how in the book of Daniel, there is a chapter that describes a group of angelic entities whose role was assigned by God to direct the affairs of humanity. These divine and angelic forces watch over the world and control the path of civilization. While this passage is short, these beings are the main focus in the Book of Enoch, where they are described more in detail as divine overseers known as the Watchers. In the English version, they are known as guardians of the sky or watchers of the sky, and in the German version, they are known as angels. Author of Chariots of the Gods, Erich von Däniken, explains that this was another time. But now we have an even greater vocabulary and are able to translate the passage in modern terms, changing the word angel out for the word extraterrestrial, which would be more accurate, says Eric. Rabbi Ariel explains that these angels were not spiritual beings. They were described as physical beings. This is a big difference between what the public views angels as versus how they were first written about in the Book of Enoch. Another detail that is very clear is that angels are not of this world, and they are not terrestrial, and so this means they are extraterrestrials. The Book of Enoch depicts over 200 watchers descending onto Earth. Reverend Michael J.S. Carter, author of Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, describes how the Book of Enoch gives us some of the names these angels went by, but they also know that the angels were ruled by Samyaza and Azazel. Later on, Azazel is known as Lucifer. According to Hugh Newman, author of Earth Grids, the Watchers had a very bright appearance, and one of their names that they were known as was the Shining Ones. Even Enoch, when he wrote about these beings, recounted how he could barely look at them because they were so bright. Ancient astronaut theorists were sold on the idea that these angels were in fact alien visitors because of the stories that corroborated this information in the stories of the prophet Elijah. Rabbi Ariel describes that aside from Enoch, There was one other person in the Bible who was known to have ascended into the heavens on chariots of fire, and that was the prophet Elijah. He was a power prophet that had abilities far beyond those of other prophets. William Henry, investigative mythologist, recounts some of the stories that describe the prophet Elijah as having a powerful garment that gave him the ability to heal the sick and raise the dead. One day he used that cloak or garment to ascend into a fiery chariot. The chariot of the gods allowed Elijah to ascend, and 50 prophets witnessed his rise. What the Bible calls a chariot of fire is curious. Rabbi Ariel questions what it could be referring to. Was it a type of technological transportation device? Was this transportation device something akin to a rocket ship, and was simply misunderstood by ancient people as being a chariot of fire? The idea of the soul ascending to heaven is a key component to Judeo-Christian traditions. There are many examples in the Bible where it is described that a person bodily ascends into the heavens. More than just Enoch and Elijah are described as ascending. This is also the case of Jesus and his mother Mary. But how is this possible if heaven is a spiritual realm? Why is it then written that some people ascended physically? Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio A. Tsoukalos describes how neither Enoch nor Elijah ever claimed to be prophets. They were instead turned into prophets by biblical writers later who claimed this. The reason Enoch was named a prophet was because of the things he had experienced. He was taken into space by extraterrestrials, and this is also the case with Elijah. To Giorgio, this is all part of the concept of technology being misunderstood by ancient people. In northern Arizona, in the high country desert, only a few miles southeast of the city of Flagstaff, exists the Barringer crater. This is one of the most impressive and best preserved impact craters in all of North America. David Childress, author of Technology of the Gods, describes what it is like to visit the Barringer crater. He recounts what it is like driving on a small road through the desert when suddenly a crater rim appears on the horizon. As one of the largest craters in the world, it is a sight worth visiting. There is only a small building beside the massive crater, and inside there is an elevator that takes tourists and visitors up to the very top of the rim to look down on the otherworldly crater. According to scientists, the crater was formed 50,000 years ago when a giant asteroid measuring 150 feet in diameter and weighing 300,000 tons hit the Earth's surface with great force. The explosion from the asteroid slamming into Earth's surface was estimated to be around 150 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in the year 1945. However impressive the Barringer crater is, it is only one of the many examples we have across the world of the devastation that asteroid impacts can have on the planet. These asteroid collisions have shaped the world we live in today in some unexpected and fascinating ways. Few people think about the fact that asteroids hitting the Earth affect everything in our lives. Theoretical physicist Dr. Michio Kaku describes how asteroids have changed the climate, created tremendous disasters on our planet. One of the most famous examples is of the disaster caused 66 million years ago, when an object that was about 6 miles across smashed into the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico and wiped out the dinosaurs from existence. This massive disaster created a new landscape on Earth and allowed for creatures like ourselves, ordinary human beings, to exist in this world. Professor of Science Avi Loeb from Harvard University believes that asteroids colliding with Earth made a huge impact on the evolution of life on our planet. As much as these collisions are known for changing the course of history, there has not been a known asteroid impact on Earth for thousands of years. Smaller fragments that we call meteors have passed through Earth's atmosphere on a regular basis. We even have calendars that keep track of meteor showers for our enjoyment. The statistics say that Earth is hit by meteors all the time. Astrophysicist and aerospace engineer Travis Taylor explains that at any time of the night, people can go outdoors and see a shooting star fly across the night sky. The shooting stars are objects from outside of the Earth entering the planet's atmosphere and burning up. Some of these meteors even make it to the ground, depending on their size. The natural world around us originally came from outer space, a fact that Dr. Michio Kaku does not want other people to forget. When looking at the 4.6 billion years of history of Earth, we see how back then there was rubble, gas, and particles circulating the sun, and gravity did its part to coalesce this material, which eventually became the planet Earth. The Earth was molten for many billions of years, and the elements and heavy metals began to drift to the center of the Earth as it formed. As the Earth's surface cooled and solidified during an extended period known as the Late Heavy Bombardment began, this was when billions of comets, asteroids, and meteors made impact with the newly formed planet. This seeded the young planet with countless resources, including water and precious metals. During this phase, Dr. Joel Sercel, founder of Transastra Corporation, recounts how smaller impacts would hit the crust of the Earth and become trapped. This means that many of the precious metals that we value in our society actually came from the asteroids, if not for the metal that arrived to this planet from space during its formative years. The development of the technologically advanced civilization would not have been possible. The asteroids and meteors contain more than the commonplace chemicals we know today as carbon and iron, but also materials that are excellent conductors of electricity like platinum. Platinum is used in the electronics industry. Meteorites provide materials like iridium and quasi-nanocrystals that are used in our technologies, explains William Henry. Gold is also a product of meteorites. Dr. Michael Dennin, professor of physics at UC Irvine, explains that the rare metals that are critical to make cell phone technology possible, as well as other electronic devices, are as likely to be here only because of meteor impacts and that material arriving from elsewhere in space, rather than having formed naturally in Earth's crust as part of its evolution. The evidence that cosmic impacts have been critical to sustaining life on Earth is humbling. However, there is even more shocking information being discovered by scientists that suggests that meteors may have seeded the Earth with DNA. The megalithic temples in Malta have no written records to explain who built them, and if they used to exist, they have been lost to time. However, the Maltese people have local traditions that give a possible explanation that is stunning to hear. According to them, they claim that the massive structures were built by a race of giant beings who came to Earth from the stars. Dr. Jonathan Young, founding curator of Joseph Campbell Archives, recounts the story of a meteorite that came down from the heavens and turned into a giant, named Sansuna. The locals described how terrified they were of this giant, but at a place called Gantija, she started to build a temple and moved stones much larger than any human could ever move, and created a structure so massive that it remains a place of mystery to this day. It remains known as a giant's construction. These stones that weigh as much as 50 tons still beggar belief, and William Henry, investigative mythologist, believes the incredible sight is why the story of the giantess Sansuna still exists to this day and age. The local legends sound incredible to some, but in the 17th century, a Maltese noble named Gianfrancesco Abella claimed that he had forensic evidence that these legends may have been fact. Hugh Newman, author of Earth Grids, explains that in the early 1600s, Gianfrancesco Abella was living on Malta when he wrote that there were giants involved in the construction of these sites. One reason he wrote this is because he insisted that he found bones, skulls, and giant teeth all across the island. There were more reports of these findings coming forth during this period of time. To properly investigate the local legends that connect giant extraterrestrial beings to the huge structures on Malta, in 2022, ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos traveled to Malta's oldest megalithic structures, the temples of Gantija, on the island of Gozo. There, he met with Frans van Avendonk, a Malta historian who has lived on the island since 1991. The men observe the structure and marvel at its massiveness. Frans explains that Gantija translates into giant goddess, and this temple explains why it has its name. They are impressed by the structure, but confused by its mysterious history. They agree that there are still many questions that are unanswered surrounding this temple. Giorgio wants to know about the dating of the site, and Frans explains that it was excavated because the discovery period was never a true topic of conversation. The monument was always clearly visible. At first, people believed the structure to be a Phoenician temple. However, later they realized it must have been prehistoric, They then date the structure to around the 2000s before Christ, however. Then it was moved to the 3000s. Then it became 3600 at least. As technology has improved and new methods to determine age have evolved, they are realizing things are even older than originally believed. When the Temple of Gantia is viewed from above, the two neighboring temples are designed with large apses resembling a cloverleaf. Each building housed an altar, and artifacts suggest that a wooden roof once covered the entire temple, protecting it from the elements. More insights have determined that many of the stone blocks used in its construction stand 20 feet tall and weigh over 50 tons each. Giorgio wants to know whether the construction of this temple indicates that human beings have lost masonry knowledge through the centuries that could explain this incredible building. His thinking is that this could have easily been created with much smaller stones, but this sheer scale indicates a lot of planning and logistics. In the opinion of Giorgio, this required master builders to design and execute such a difficult undertaking. Mainstream archaeologists suggest that whoever built this monument did not have any writing skills or knowledge. Giorgio is of the belief that a project of this scale would definitely require writing, but also a ton of calculations and leadership to pull off. Franz explains that the evidence of how old and when the structure was built and who built it and why may be hidden somewhere among the stones, but they simply have not found it yet. Anyone seeing such a gargantuan temple would have thought it was the work of a giant. Throughout the Mediterranean world, the legends and association of these megaliths are deeply intertwined with that of giants. For example, in Greece, there is a structure named the Lion's Gate, which is one such megalith. Aristotle had written that the construction style of the Lion's Gate was called Cyclopean masonry because of the large stones used in its building. The ancient Greeks determined that only a giant called Cyclops could have been strong enough to move and stack these stones. The same kind of Cyclopean masonry is seen in the Maltese temples. Giorgio notes that these stories and legends of giants have been an essential part of human history since the beginning of time. This is not an easy thing to discard, and not something that the ancient astronaut theory created. Could it be possible that these stories of giants hold truth? Did giants exist at one point? Giorgio believes they certainly did and left their mark on Earth and its history. There are dozens of indigenous Native American cultures that call Alaska home. These people have inhabited the area for hundreds, and in some amazing cases, thousands of years. According to Ken Gerhard, a cryptozoologist and author specializing on the topic, he explains that there are many Native American cultures in Alaska. He lists some of the most prominent, like the Inuit people in the northern coastal regions, the Athabascans of the central Alaska region, the Yupik people, and then in the southeast are the Tlingit and Haida tribes. Every single one of these tribes have their own traditions that are passed down through the generations. However, in a strange pattern, it has been noted that these separate cultures all tell stories of the Sky People. The tales of the Sky People describe first-hand encounters by their earliest ancestors. Mike Ricksecker, author of Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, recounts how he was once stationed in Alaska from 1992 to 1995 as part of the United States Air Force at Elmendorf Air Force Base. Mike chronicles his experiences with the cultures he contacted in Alaska and some of the local legends and lore he heard from the natives in his time there. He relates that the local legends and lore talk about strange lights in the sky and strange beings that visited the people. The founding curator of the Joseph Campbell Archives, Jonathan Young, describes how these Alaskan tribes had a culture with rich stories about contact with mysterious beings that were not of this planet that they called Star People. These ancient Alaskan folk tales of unusual entities in the sky and visitors from the stars align with the kind of supernatural phenomenon that has been reported in modern times. There are also accounts of otherworldly and bizarre creatures. The investigative mythologist, William Henry, explains that there is a common thread in all of these Alaskan stories, and it all centers around the existence of supernatural creatures. These beings all have eyewitness accounts which describe terrifying and unusual entities in their tribal stories. William Henry chronicles the most frightening creature from these tribal stories, from the Inuit story of the Kushtaka. the Kushtaka could change its form, and people have been seeing them for thousands of years. When considering the number of unidentified flying objects that have been sighted and reported in Alaska, could it be possible that the stories of these unusual entities have an explanation that is otherworldly in nature? There is more support for this idea than the mainstream public would believe. Ancient astronaut theorists point out that some native Alaskan legends sound too similar to the stories we have today of small gray allies who abduct people from their homes in the middle of the night. No creature from legend is as frightening to the Alaskan tribes than the Little People, which go by different native names like the Inukins, Irchinrak, Jinxiok. The most terrifying thing said about these creatures is that they take their victims to another realm, where they can control time. These little beings are actually imbued with other magical powers. All of these tales have the common marker of abduction throughout them. These tales are completely of native Alaskan origin, and yet they would like a direct crossover into the UFO phenomenon where people are terrified of UFOs because these alien beings are abducting people. Some researchers believe that these tales and accounts of strange beings in Alaska could also point to the existence of a portal or wormhole that lead to other points in the universe, or even into alternate dimensions where these creatures live. The former employee of the UK Ministry of Defence and author, Nick Pope, recounts the theory that extraterrestrials can use wormholes to their advantage. Scientifically, these wormholes are known as the Einstein-Rosen bridges, which are shortcuts through space-time. People may have heard of these bridges in films like Thor from the MCU universe. The theory believes that the use of these bridges would allow UFOs to arrive out of nowhere and disappear into nowhere, which is something often seen in the many reports of these UFO activities. Could the legends of the native Alaskan people reveal the otherworldly happenings that have been occurring in this part of the world for thousands of years? The weather is clear. He sees a gray wingless object off the left side of his plane. In the national security state, the saucer is not as big as his own plane, which is already a very modest size. When the pilot looks ahead of himself, he sees there is one coming straight at him, and it flies directly below his aircraft. He can feel the bump under his plane. Terrified out of his mind, he realizes that he is no longer in control of his plane. He begins to believe that the plane is responding to the objects that have surrounded him and not to him. That the UFO's own magnetic envelope is lifting the plane to higher heights. The tower tries to give him instructions, but Carlos can only respond with what he is experiencing, explaining that he has unidentified visual objects surrounding him, making note of the one that slipped under his plane. Dolan recounts the confusion Carlos had while making this call, not knowing how to respond in this situation that he was never prepared for. The private plane is heading straight toward a mountainous area and veer toward the Mount Popocatépetl volcano at an incredible speed. Carlos is then forced to circle the airport a dozen times until he finally uses a screwdriver to push the lever to get his landing gear to release. Carlos successfully lands his aircraft, and his story does not end here. According to Richard Dolan, Carlos's career was on the line because his reputation could have been ruined with this incident and his Mayday calls, except for the fact that Mexican aircraft controllers managed to track these three unidentified objects on their own equipment. This evidence backed up his version of events and cleared his name from accusations of falsehoods or incompetence. He was approached by mysterious figures twice, with the warning that he should no longer speak about his experience that day. J. Allen Hynek, UFO investigator at a hotel. He encounters these tall, pasty, white-skinned guys who warn him not to speak, is extremely suspicious. These actions are clearly threatening in nature. De Los Santos did stop speaking out about this for a while afterwards, but as time passed, he started speaking up again. This is one of the most incredible aviation UFO stories ever told, especially because the person who experienced it lived to tell the tale. Mount Olympus is found in Greece, rising over 9,500 feet high. This is a sacred mountain that holds the second tallest position in the Balkan Peninsula. The reason this is such a sacred and famous mountain is because in ancient myth, this was the chosen home of immortal deities that all remember as the Olympians. Dr. Rick Rader, author of Written in the Cosmos, recounts how Mount Olympus is the setting for the secretive and mythical abode of the ancient Greek gods that live in perfect, immortal relaxation for their entire existence in this plane. Even in modern times, clouds like to form at the top of it like a crown. This is the area where all the mortals below assumed the gods lived, and thus they were unable to see them through the cloud coverage. Mount Olympus was sacred to the ancient Greeks, and at the foot of the mountain rested the city of Dion. This city became a center of pilgrimage and religious worship in the 5th century BC because of its location so close to the home of the gods. Author of The Synchronicity Key, David Wilcock, explains that the region Dion was located at the very base of Mount Olympus was believed to be a position of power. In the 4th century BC, Alexander the Great visited Dion before launching his world-changing conquest of Asia. This place was near magical in the minds of the ancients, and there was something very important related to this mountain. The Greeks had a deep fascination with Mount Olympus and were convinced that real people with godly power lived at its peak. When the Greeks say lightning, storm clouds, and natural disasters gather, they attribute these natural phenomena to the wrath and anger of the gods. William Henry described that the Olympians themselves were said to be huge sky beings who had come down to earth and settled down on Mount Olympus. These gods interacted with the humans in the region, and the ancients speak of them as though they were real, physical beings. The author of Technology of the Gods, David Childress, explains that for centuries historians believed that the Greek myths and stories were all fictional. However, in 1870, the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann discovered the lost city of Troy. There is also the story they have of the oracle at Delphi and the god Apollo, who could speak through the oracle. This is yet another example of archaeologists having found the exact spot where the oracle of Delphi once sat and spoke. This means that we now have proof that some of these ancient Greek stories are genuine historical accounts. This now raises the question about the Olympians and whether the stories about them are also true. Some historians, like William Henry, believe that the stories of the Olympians all point to them being extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth so they could influence and shape humankind. Are the myths of ancient Greece true? Was Mount Olympus home to the gods who were living and intermingling with the mortals on planet Earth? If this is true, were those powerful gods actually aliens like some of the ancient astronaut theorists suggest? The Greek poet Hesiod left accounts from the 8th century BC that spoke about the origins of the Olympians. According to his writings, the Olympians were the children of the Titans, another generation of gods that were believed to occupy the nearby mountain named Mount Othrys. When the Olympians grew tired of the oppressive rule of their forefathers, the Titans, they waged a terrible rebellion against them and used Mount Olympus as their base during this conflict. Historians chronicle how the commands were issued from the mountains, and the battles took place on the wide open plains between their respective mountains. The battle raged until the Olympians triumphed over the Titans when they finally captured them. Georgios Tsoukalos comments that whenever Mount Olympus is referenced, it is described as a magnificent palace with heavenly descriptions such as temple walls that always gleamed with gold or silver. There is much mention of lights that are described to look like jewels. Blinking lights and descriptions of that nature litter the descriptions. From a modern perspective, these things sound a lot like these two mountains were the command posts where the Olympians and Titans drew up battle plans. Giorgio elaborates on this idea, believing that these command posts could have literally been functional military outposts in the mountains for a war between extraterrestrial beings. In this journey through the Ancient Alien series, we have uncovered shocking information about the secrets hidden about the Bible and its texts, the true impact of meteors and cosmic projectiles on Earth, as well as an ancient race of giants that built temples and mysteriously left no other traces aside from 17th century accounts of bones and ancient legends. The terrifying tales of interdimensional creatures in Alaska and UFOs endangering pilots across Mexico all hold the old terror of abduction through them. There are even theories that the gods from myths and legends were real physical entities that visited Earth and departed with only a few pieces of evidence left behind. The common string through all of these tales is that they are all shocking truths that any government would want to hide from the masses.
ancient scrolls found in a desert cave. When the shepherds returned and climbed into the cave, they discovered several large clay jars. Inside these jars, they found a bunch of old scrolls. It quickly became clear that these weren't just any old papers. They were incredibly old and important. These scrolls turned out to be ancient texts, and among them were the oldest copies of parts of the Bible ever found, dating back thousands of years. This was a huge deal because it pushed back the earliest known texts of the Bible by a full millennium. But that's not all. They also found other documents that had been completely unknown until that point. One of the surprising aspects of this discovery was the importance given to the Book of Enoch. The shepherds found not just one or two, but 11 different versions of this book, including some that people today had never seen before. Alongside these, there were fragments of another text called the Book of Giants, which had been lost over the centuries. Many experts believe the Book of Giants is older than the Book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. It tells a fascinating tale about beings known as watchers who come down from heaven, marry human women, and have children who grow up to be giants. Andrew Collins, a researcher who has studied these texts, explains that the Book of Giants focuses on these giant children known as Nephilim. It talks about their lives and the conversations they had, coming to the realization that they were causing harm. According to the Book of Giants, these Nephilim did some terrible things, including attacking humans. The situation got so bad that, according to the text, God decided to clean up the mess. He chose Noah, a man noted for his goodness, to survive a great flood that would wipe the slate clean and start humanity over. This story of Noah and the flood is well known from the Bible, but the scrolls offer a new perspective on it. The Dead Sea Scrolls also contain something called the Lamech Scroll, which gives a different take on Noah's origin. It suggests that Noah was special even before he was born, and that his real father might not have been Lamech, the man married to his mother, Batnush. When Noah was born, his mother noticed right away that he was different. He had incredibly white skin and hair, and he glowed in a way that humans just don't. Lamech, seeing his son, was confused because he had been away and thought the timing of Noah's birth didn't add up. He was convinced Noah couldn't be his son. Lamech decided to get some advice from his father, Methuselah, who then went to talk to Enoch, Noah's great-grandfather. Enoch shared a stunning revelation. He explained that celestial beings called the guardians of the sky had a hand in Noah's birth. They had chosen Batnosh for a special kind of miracle, one where Noah was conceived without the usual process. Enoch told Lamech to accept Noah as his son because these celestial beings had big plans for Noah. He was to lead a new generation of humans after a great cleansing. This discovery at Qumran changed a lot of what we thought we knew about these ancient texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls introduced us to versions of biblical stories that were different and much older than any known before. They expanded the historical context of these religious texts and showed that there were more versions of these stories circulating in the past than previously thought. Finding these scrolls was like opening a time capsule from the distant past. It offered a rare glimpse into what people thousands of years ago believed and valued. For historians and religious scholars, this was like finding a gold mine because it provided new insights and prompted new questions about the origins and variations of these ancient stories. The scrolls are still being studied today, and they continue to offer new information and perspectives on the history of religious texts. For anyone interested in history, religion, or even just incredible tales of discoveries, the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls is a fascinating one. It shows how a simple act, like throwing a rock by a group of young shepherds, can lead to discoveries that change our understanding of the past. One of the texts talked about a special person with an amazing story that goes beyond what we normally see. Enoch's special connection with the divine. Enoch is a captivating figure in religious texts, known for his extraordinary life and deep connections with the divine. He is noted as the seventh patriarch after Adam and the great-grandfather of Noah in the Bible. One of the most fascinating parts about Enoch is that the Bible says he walked with God. This means he had a very special relationship with God, unlike many others during his time who did not live good lives. Interestingly, the Bible tells us that God took him away, which suggests that Enoch did not die in the usual way. For those who seek more information about Enoch, the Book of Enoch, a text not included in the Standard Bible, provides a broader view of his life. This book is especially important in Ethiopian Christianity and was written around 300 to 200 BCE. It expands on Enoch's experiences, detailing his visions and travels through different heavenly realms. It's a rich source of stories about his extraordinary travels and the spiritual insights he gained. The Book of Enoch introduces us to the Watchers, angels who descended to earth. These angels had a significant impact on humanity, teaching people various skills and knowledge. However, they also led humans astray from what was morally right. Their interactions with humans are said to have resulted in the creation of the Nephilim, giant beings who are part of the reason for the great flood mentioned in the book of Genesis. In these tales, Enoch serves as a mediator or a go-between, warning these angels about God's impending judgment due to their actions. Besides adventurous stories, the Book of Enoch explores deep themes like justice, morality, and the repercussions of one's actions. It shows Enoch as a preacher of righteousness, constantly warning his contemporaries about the dire results of evil behaviors. His steadfast faith and his close ties with God are depicted as exemplary, setting a moral benchmark for others. The influence of the Book of Enoch extends beyond just religious stories. It plays a role in historical and theological discussions as well. Even the New Testament acknowledges it. Specifically, the Epistle of Jude quotes directly from the Book of Enoch, lending it some recognition. Nevertheless, the book's authenticity and its place in the canonical Bible are hotly debated topics among scholars and religious authorities. Questions about who wrote it, when it was written, and whether its teachings align with more generally accepted religious writings are common. Despite these debates, the Book of Enoch remains a significant text for those studying ancient religious beliefs, particularly early Jewish and Christian thought. Enoch's story, enriched both in the Bible and the Book of Enoch, highlights him as a figure of great faith and virtue at a time when many were losing their moral compass. His life story encourages us to think deeply about righteousness and the negative outcomes of immoral living. Whether viewed through a religious or historical lens, Enoch's narratives provide rich material for reflection and offer insights into the nature of righteousness, divine justice, and human conduct. From a simpler perspective, Enoch's life teaches about the importance of living a good life and maintaining a close relationship with the divine. His experiences and the lessons he shares, particularly in the Book of Enoch, are not just old stories but are relevant in teaching us about leadership, responsibility, and the importance of standing up for what is right. The stories of his travels through heavenly realms and his interactions with celestial beings can also be seen as metaphors for understanding more profound truths about our existence and the universe. Moreover, the story of Enoch and the Watchers sheds light on the idea that knowledge and power can be double-edged swords. They can lead to great advancements but can also cause significant problems if not handled responsibly. Enoch's role as a mediator highlights the importance of wisdom and mediation in resolving conflicts and guiding others towards a moral and upright path. Enoch's life story, as narrated in both the Bible and the Book of Enoch, serves as a timeless reminder of the virtues of faithfulness and righteousness. It encourages us to reflect on our actions and their impacts on the world around us. His story resonates not just in religious contexts, but as a universal tale of maintaining integrity and virtue in challenging times. Whether one is religious or not, Enoch's life offers valuable lessons in leadership, ethics, and the pursuit of spiritual and moral excellence. As we explore the area, we find a place just as interesting as the text, full of ancient history and unique features: the salty waters of the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea, nestled between Jordan and Israel, is a fascinating salt lake known for its extremely high salt content and distinctive mineral makeup. This lake sits at the lowest elevation on Earth's surface, about 1410 feet below sea level, making it a remarkable spot geographically. The main source of water for this lake is the Jordan River, along with a few smaller streams. However, it lacks any natural outlets, which means water that flows into it can only escape by evaporating. This process is quite intense in the area's hot, dry climate and leads to a high concentration of salts and other minerals in the lake. In fact, the Dead Sea is about 10 times saltier than the ocean, with a salinity of roughly 30%. Geologically, the Dead Sea is part of the Jordan Rift Valley, which in turn is a section of the vast Great Rift Valley stretching from East Africa all the way to Syria. This Rift Valley came into being as the African and Arabian tectonic plates started drifting apart. The space created between these plates caused the land to sink down, forming the deep basin that is now the Dead Sea. The combination of high evaporation rates and limited fresh water inflow has allowed salts like sodium chloride, along with minerals such as magnesium, potassium, and bromine to accumulate over time. These minerals are highly valued for their health benefits, drawing visitors from around the world for therapeutic treatments. Life in the Dead Sea is quite limited due to its salty environment. You won't find fish or plants here, but some microorganisms, including certain bacteria and algae that love salty environments, manage to thrive. The lake's dense salt content creates a unique situation where people can float effortlessly on the water, which is a popular experience for tourists. The Dead Sea holds a special place in history and culture as well. It's mentioned in the Bible, and the surrounding area is linked to ancient stories and cities such as Sodom and Gomorrah. Over centuries, various groups, including the ancient Egyptians, Israelites, Romans, and Byzantines, have made their home around this region. Today, it's a major attraction for tourists looking to enjoy its resorts, therapeutic mud baths, and the unique experience of floating in its buoyant waters. But there's more to the area than just the sea. Visitors can explore nearby attractions like the Ain Gedi Nature Reserve, famous for its stunning valleys and waterfalls, or the historic fortress of Masada, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are also other historical sites, such as Lot's Cave and natural hot springs like Hammamet Mayin to discover. Despite its appeal, the Dead Sea is facing some serious environmental challenges. Its water level has been dropping alarmingly, mainly due to water being diverted from the Jordan River for agriculture and other uses. This, along with mineral extraction activities, is causing the sea level to fall by about 3 feet each year. This reduction in water level is not only shrinking the sea but also causing dangerous sinkholes to form around its shores, which can damage roads and buildings and pose risks to visitors. To combat these problems, various solutions are being considered, including a project to bring water from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea, known as the Red Sea-Dead Sea Conveyance. This project aims to help stabilize the water level and preserve the ecological balance of the area, although its practicality and potential impact on the environment are still being debated. The climate around the Dead Sea is another extreme aspect, with very little rainfall, less than 2 inches a year, and temperatures that can soar above 40 degrees in the summer. The high pressure and low ultraviolet radiation in the area also make it a unique place for treating certain skin ailments. Tourism is vital for the local economy, with numerous resorts and spas offering treatments using the mineral-rich mud from the Dead Sea. These businesses not only provide relaxation and health benefits to visitors, but also sell a variety of Dead Sea products like bath salts, creams, and soaps, which are popular for their skin-healing properties. The Dead Sea region is truly a unique natural and cultural gem. It provides a deep look into geological formations, historical narratives, and the impact of human actions on nature. Preserving this precious area requires careful water resource management and sustainable tourism practices. It remains an invaluable site for both tourists and scientists, offering lessons on the delicate interplay between natural wonders and human development. From these discoveries, we move to a story that has influenced many people's beliefs and lives: the spread of Christian teachings. Christianity is one of the main religions around the world, and it started because of the life and ideas of Jesus of Nazareth way back in the 1st century AD. People who follow this religion are called Christians, and they believe Jesus is the Christ, which means anointed one, and also the Son of God. They think that God sent Jesus to earth to save people by living a good life, then dying and coming back to life 3 days later. This story is at the heart of Christianity and is celebrated during Easter, which marks Jesus' comeback from death, showing he beat sin and death itself. The Bible, particularly the New Testament, is like the guidebook for Christians. It's got the Gospels, which tell Jesus' story, the Acts of the Apostles, which is about the early days of the Christian community, and letters written by early leaders like Paul. Plus, there's the book of Revelation, which talks about prophecies and visions of the future. Christianity got its start from Judaism. Jesus was a Jew, and he spent his time teaching other Jewish people. He gathered a bunch of followers, including 12 key ones called the apostles. His teachings focused on love, forgiveness, and the idea that God's kingdom was coming soon. While lots of people liked what he had to say, it wasn't everyone's cup of tea. His ideas and popularity didn't sit well with some, and eventually he was executed by the Roman authorities. But Christians believed that his death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a sacrifice to forgive people's wrongdoings. After Jesus supposedly rose from the dead and went to heaven, his followers, especially Peter and Paul, took up the baton and spread his teachings far and wide. They started in Jerusalem but didn't stop there. They went all over the Roman Empire and beyond. Those early days, when the apostles were still around, are called the Apostolic Age. During this time, Christians weren't exactly popular and faced a lot of pushback from both Jewish and Roman leaders because their beliefs went against the grain of traditional religious and social rules. But despite the rough start, the religion grew pretty fast. It appealed to a wide range of people because it promised hope and a chance at redemption for everyone, no matter their background. Things really started to change for Christians with the Roman Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century. He became a Christian and passed the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, which said that Christians could practice their faith without getting in trouble. This was huge because it stopped Christians from being persecuted, and it helped Christianity become a big deal in the Roman Empire. Constantine also called the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where leaders came together to agree on some of the core beliefs of Christianity, like who Christ was and how he related to God. As time went on, especially during the Middle Ages, Christianity really took root in Europe. It got mixed into politics and culture, and monarchs and rulers often used it to help run their kingdoms. Monasteries became important places where monks focused on prayer and preserved knowledge, which was especially valuable during times when Europe wasn't very stable. A big split happened in 1054, known as the Great Schism. It divided the Christian world into two: the Western Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. This split happened because of a bunch of disagreements that had been building up over time about beliefs, politics, and culture. This divide is still in place today, with the Roman Catholic Church being based in the Vatican and the Orthodox churches mostly found in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Did the shepherds in the Judean desert uncover a simple archaeological find? Or could it be something that challenges our understanding of history? What do you think about this strange discovery? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.